He recalls our tears. He recalls our tears. He remembers the times where our hearts were broken because of the pollution of this world. He especially recalls every time that the tears were caused due to spewing of evil toward us because of the light that was within us. He longs for us to know that He recalls our tears, and that it brings Him joy to recall our tears, because when there is a deficit, it means that there is room for His glory to flow. The deeper the well of the wound, the more of His golden glory gets to come through our life. I'm a living testimony of this. I'm living proof of this. I was willing to be the girl that wasn't cool anymore. I was willing to be the girl that disappointed everybody because no longer would she be objectified for culture or for a job or for anything. When I took back my identity because I discovered who I was through the eyes of my Father, my Creator, there's a lot of backlash that comes. There's a lot of turbulence that comes. Half the time, people don't even realize how much they are disrupted by staying in the bounds of culture, staying in the bounds of what has been set out for us by man. And when they see one person getting free, the darkness within them can be activated, and they spew hatred and negativity and lash out at the person getting free because, and they don't know it, this is all subconscious, they don't know why, but it's their own discontentment due to their own choices and their own lostness. And they see that you have something, whether they can see it with their eyes or not. They perceive the gold that you found. And the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy it. So it's incredible because when you have this treasure, when you've acquired your treasure, and the crazy thing is that we all, every single one of us, has an allotment of treasure that is assigned to us, and it's more than any of us could have asked for or dreamt of having. And when we start to unveil the treasure, and when we start to receive the treasure that has been assigned to us, the enemy, if we are not careful, there's a pollution that happens. The poison of the pollution of darkness is activated against us. And this is why it's so important for each of us to diligently steward our atmosphere and our spiritual health, and to go after our divine identity, and to go after understanding who we are in the Father, because if we don't, we can accidentally be activated, like our wounds can be activated against another person, an innocent person who has done nothing to us. We are all equally susceptible to darkness, and until we put on the memra until we saturate our world, our atmosphere in the memra, which is the frequency of the Spirit of the living God that changes everything. So what do we do when somebody's darkness is activated against us? I just received this revelation this morning that when the person sees that the treasure you have is something they're missing, the treasure is often a purified sense of liberty, no shame. And if there's a person that is carrying a lot of shame and darkness and poison, it doesn't always have to be like a conscious guilt of any sort. It's just simply a false identity that has been projected upon us by darkness and by our bad habits and by our lusts and by running after indulgence and allowing addiction to rule over us instead of taking it by the horns and pleading the blood of Yeshua over this and evicting it from our very atmosphere and our being. So when the person sees your purified atmosphere and it just sets them off, they want to steal your peace, whether they understand it or not. This is the enemy. So this is darkness, this is pollution, this is poison. When it's saturating an atmosphere, and it encounters the opposite of that, there's a projection of a spewing of the poison through words often and actions to steal the purification, steal the peace, and pollute it with the toxic sludge. And it is our responsibility to learn how to not absorb the toxic sludge of the atmosphere of another. Abba, teach us how to not absorb and how to not take on the toxic sludge of somebody else's pollution. Forgiveness is simply saying no thank you to, I'm not going to actually receive the toxic sludge that you're carrying, that you created in your life through your actions, your words, your decisions. And yeah, they really negatively impacted me, but I am not going to receive the toxic sludge that you spewed out in your own pain and your own shame and your own sickness and illness. This is how Yeshua was able to hang on the cross after being absolutely just beat to a pulp by these just straight up evil, aka polluted beings. And he was able to still pray for them, because had he allowed the pollution of hatred to infiltrate his being, he would no longer be carrying the peace of the Spirit of the living God, which is free from that hatred and that sludge. So forgiveness is a nod to the one who first of all got us into a space where we even have clarity, where we even have a pure atmosphere. We didn't get here on our own. We can't get here on our own. There's no way we could have gotten here on our own. yes, it requires our free will and our intention and our intentional decision, and it requires an ongoing choice every day about who we choose to allow to our atmosphere, what we choose to absorb, who we choose to have in the center seat. All of those decisions count. When David in 2 Samuel 2:22 said that pretty much God is like recompensing me because of my righteousness. He's looking at me due to my cleanness. He's not saying I'm super holy and perfect. He's just saying, listen, I learned the nature of God. I aligned with the nature of God. Saul came after me to kill me. I never had the green light to kill him. So even when I was running around and he's chasing me, and then I could have snuck up on him and killed him that moment when I cut a little piece of his robe off, David's like, I didn't do that because I did not have the green light to do that. And so I used my free will to not allow his toxic jealousy and his toxic hatred. Saul just hated that David had something he didn't. Ooh, that resonates. Saul hated that David just had a thing that he didn't. And probably what it really boils down to is the intimacy with God that David had, because out of that intimacy with God is where everything springs forth. That's where he had the boldness to go and slay Goliath and be like, my God has been with me when I was fighting the tiger and fighting the bear, and like he's gonna be with me right now, you uncircumcised Philistine. By the way, let's not get religious on this, okay? But I just love that's because back in the day that was like an indicator of whose side you were on and who your God was. Because of what Yeshua did through the cross, that's no longer necessary. It's not a requirement. And plus, it would be kind of funny. I don't know. I still don't really understand why we still do that. Because it's like, we're not Jewish, yo. Most of us are not. And even if you were, you're not required to anymore. Because the blood of Yeshua covers all of us for everything. He did it once and it's for all of time now. Anyway, fast forward. Trust me, I have questions on it though, because I've heard there are like, I don't know if this is true or not, this could be a big lie, but I've heard there are like, like physical, what did we call this? Physical health, things that it's like there are benefits to it because of physical health, wellness. Like, anyway, I don't know enough about that, so we all will have to go and study it ourselves. But in terms of that now being like an indicator and some religious ritual of like whether you're in or out, it's no longer the thing. But anyway, back to David. David, pretty much showed up everyone. He didn't wear armor. He wasn't a trained military person. Everybody had been sitting there standing or like staring, having a standoff with the giants, with Goliath for like, I think, if I recall, it was like weeks. The military standing there, like everyone's too afraid to take him on. And David knew that he had a call on his life. David knew that one day he was already anointed to be king. It was already foretold that he was going to be king. So he was just like chilling with the sheep, which was a girl's job at the time, waiting for his time to be, king. He finds out that whoever kills this guy gets to marry the king's daughter. Boom. There's your in. So he had confidence. He's like, this is my moment. Like, I know that I'm going to win. And also, I think he kind of had this like righteous anger, like, because what was on the line was like who was going to become slaves to whom. So if this didn't, like David's like, I already know that my God says we're free, that he's the God, he is the creator, he is the one. And so like, if he can't do this through me, Like, we're not going to become slaves today. Like, that's not how this is going to end. And so he had this, like, confidence. Saul was jealous of that. You know, not everybody's happy when you rise up and discover who you are. Not everybody's stoked on that. Some people are straight up jealous. And what ends up happening is their own internal poison now becomes spewed in your direction. And it's a skill and a necessary practice to learn how to not absorb that negativity, that pollution. And I'll be super honest, like, this has been a real challenge for me. I grew up being friends with everybody. I learned how to people please at a very young age, and I was really good at it, and I was fun and happy. And I also learned how to objectify my own self for whatever was like the assignment being given to me by people. I was the best employee. I was the best student. I was the best, and then until God disrupted my life and was like, hey, you're being everything that they want you to be, but I've called you to be something else. You got to come over here and do this. I did not do it gracefully when I up and changed my direction. There was also, when you do that, there's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of resistance that comes with leaving your pollution life behind and going into the purifying spirit, or the purifying presence of the Spirit of the living God, the Memra, allowing the Memra to flow through your life. We have to remember that we're in a war spiritually for this territory and for souls, and for atmospheres. And so those of us who are not all the way in with Abba, with our Father, our Creator, who is our lover, our friend, who has unlimited resources for us, who is here to give us anything and everything that we need once we have gone through the fire, and he knows that it won't break us. We go through the fire to be refined and to get our priorities straight, by the way. We go through the wilderness to lose our slave mentality, to drop our slave mentality. And he deals with us on one issue at a time in this modern life, one issue at a time. And we give him one thing at a time, one thing at a time. We think we're giving him everything, but as soon as you really submitted one thing to him, he'll show you the next thing that's to be submitted to him. And so today I submit to him my anger and every instance and every pollution that I have taken on out of a toxic self-defense due to poison that has been spewed to me because of who I am and because of the person that I'm becoming and because of the person that I'm unbecoming. Today I hand over my own shame, guilt, and unforgiveness for both myself and for other people. Today I also hand over my frustration with people who don't learn quickly and my unforgiveness for those who should have done better. And I forgive myself for every instance in which I should have done better. For the toxic sludge of unforgiveness really just mucks up our own atmosphere and creates anger that will then boil over at some point or another. Abba, today we choose to be free in the presence of your Holy Spirit, in the presence of the Memra, which is the flowing spiritual frequency that sets us free. We acknowledge and we respect with a hearty reverence the Spirit of the living God in the room. The Spirit of the living God in the room is the one and only King that I bow to. And because I bow to it, I command that my physical body bow to the King in the room. And I also command my atmosphere to bow to the King in the room. And I evict every spirit of darkness, every pollution that's been messing with my head and messing with my body. I command every darkness to flee and to acknowledge the light of God that resides here. I declare this space kingdom. I align with the promise that says exceedingly abundantly far above anything that I could ask or think is my portion. And I declare and decree that, Abba, I align with your word of promise, and I let go of any shame, guilt, darkness, poison, illness, anything that I have been identifying with in order to protect myself, in order to validate myself, or in order to just out of some sort of principle that doesn't matter. Abba, we ask that you would reveal to us the next level of who you are. There are so many levels of who he is, and there are things that he can't show us because of our own wounds. A cracked piece of wood cannot hold a lot of weight. A cracked piece of glass cannot hold a lot of weight. And so, Abba, we must receive your healing. The cracks come through the poison. The cracks come through the wounding. The cracks come through the pollution. And so, Abba, we thank you that your Spirit, the more that we pursue and reside in your Spirit, the more that it purifies our atmosphere and allows for us to be whole. And then we are able to hold the weightier, more glorious miracles, assignments, positioning, and words to release to your children. We give you glory because you are the glory in our life. It's funny when we say that. We give you glory. It's like you are the glory. You are the glory. Your presence is the glory. And so we're just acknowledging, though, that whatever glory you've given to us and through us, we shine it back to you and we point back to you and say, only by the grace of the Almighty God am I who I am. I am who I am because he is who he is. Eya Asher Eya, it is so.